Well, thank you guys very much. I know we're somewhere between the hopefully you're not hungry anymore and not too sleepy mode. But I'm hoping that we've got a good panel for you, a great set of people here to talk about an interesting topic, which is the blurring of the line between home and school. So throughout the morning, what's interesting, I came to my first CES Kids at Play 5 years, the 5th session ago, so 4 years ago. And it was all about games, and it was all about toys, and it was fabulous to me. And I think we've heard a lot about education this morning, and we've heard a lot about technology. And as the parent of a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old, I can tell you it's almost maddening to try to think about what our roles and responsibilities are in this rapidly changing environment. So I'm excited to have a set of people up here with us who are going to talk about their own different way of engaging with technology. As Warren mentioned before, I founded a company that allowed children to use the same technology that adults were using for social interactivity. People used to ask me, what was your biggest problem with technology? And I would say 3 children and 2 iPads, right? Because the issue is one where everyone wants to have access all the time, and so they don't have them at school, they have them at home, and it creates an interesting opportunity for us to think about what could they do at home with these devices that they aren't necessarily doing at school, or should they be doing the same things at home that they're doing in school? And so, I want to thank Robin and the entire team of people here that make this possible for bringing this topic to bear, and we'll just dive right into it. I think what I would like to have is each of our panelists, who are very, very skilled and capable, give you a little bit of background on what they do, and then hopefully we'll be able to have a nice interchange on some of the key issues, and I'm hoping that we'll get some questions from the audience, so please be prepared to dive in when you've got a moment. So first we'll start with Dave Merrill, and Dave, do you want to give a quick introduction and
Sure.
share your stuff?
Show what my company, Sifteo, is working on and how it fits into this topic. So, let's see. All right. What if interactions with digital media were like jamming your hands into a pile of Legos? I think that'd be amazing. Here's why. This is how we play. We play with stuff, real, physical stuff. A lot of our earliest play experiences as human beings were games like Mancala and Dominoes with physical pieces. It's also how we learn, right? A lot of progressive education is about using physical objects like Montessori and other experience-based learning philosophies. So this is a really deeply rooted part of human psychology, how we learn. And then, as we all know, video games are amazing. They blur reality. They're so motivating and so engaging. And we're just beginning now to figure out how to use them as tools for learning. So the thought that animates Sifteo is, wouldn't it be great to bring together these two experiences, these two play traditions really, into one single experience? What if the lines between Legos and video games were blurred? And that's exactly what Sifteo cubes are. So we're a startup, we're in San Francisco. We are kind of adjacent to learning technology. We're building a platform that'll show you a video to give you an idea of what it is. But it's kind of like Nintendo Wii for your coffee table. Tactile, intelligent play. And there's a lot of possibilities for learning. So we have a great software development kit. And so at Sifteo, we have a game studio, and other developers are making new experiences for the platform. So here's a little preview, some snippets of what the platform is. But on the outside, little physical cubes with screens, a library of game experiences that you can download to the system and play on the system. And the core interaction is this physical hands-on grasping and movement of these little video tiles. They understand what your hands can do, like pouring a liquid. So this is some kind of future concept game jam video footage that I'm showing that our team did internally to show the possibilities of the platform. But we've already built a great starting game library. There's outside developers working to build both pure play, but also intelligent play learning applications for the system. So anyway, to wrap up, I think the best interactive play and learning experiences don't leave physicality behind. That's my core thesis. That's what Sifteo is all about. In video gaming, that's what makes the Wii and the Kinect so powerful. And this is a picture of Maker Faire. There was a bunch of kids and families that the kids had to share these sets of cubes, which actually worked very well as a kind of distributed interface. These are some guys from MIT who neglected their own booth at the Maker Faire to come over and play some cubes. So we think we were onto something. So human-computer interfaces, that's my passion. They just keep getting better and better, and I think the most powerful way they will continue to evolve and improve is to hook into the actions and the skills that people are just made to do, like playing with real physical stuff.
Excellent. Thank you, David.
Sure.
Sifteo is really cool, and we're looking forward to hearing more about how this maps to the migration. I think, do we have a clicker up here? Between the slides? Is it this one? Over here? Yeah, this one? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to introduce Tom Axtell next. Tom is with PBS and is going to talk about how the world of broadcast and information and learning is all changing in the digital world.
And let's see, my slideshow is where?
You should be keep on going. You go up
This way?
next one, and next. There you go.
Okay, next generation learning, that's what we're talking about. You all think of us as I'm from the local PBS station, and we're kind of an unusual station because we're one of only 6 in the U.S. that's actually owned and operated by a school district. And so we work very closely with both our television audiences and our school audiences and our parents. And so we really worked hard to try to integrate the national products we get. All of you think of us as TV, of an old industry, not the new flashy and high-tech stuff. You think of all these programs. But each of the programs in the portfolio are focused on delivering certain kinds of learning objectives, all of which we measure and can document performance. If you take a look at Las Vegas, 18% of the Hispanic homes in this market have no computer, or rather 30% have no computer other than children, and 40% of Hispanic homes have only over-the-air television. So being able to serve that population base with traditional over-the-air television is an important part of our service mix. But because we're a station, we actually have 11 local people. Last year we did 665 community workshops targeting at low-income neighborhoods, where we attempted to introduce parents to technology and to show them some of the new PBS products that can be used on the alternative technologies that they may have. Like every other media property, we've created a huge series of websites. We have PBS Kids, Kids Go, PBS Parents, etc. But this website alone has about 12.8 million visitors. You have interactive games on there, you have apps, you can watch programs, you can watch segments of programs, a lot of the derivative material. This is a painful chart to look at, but it really shows you how PBS has taken its broadcast properties, which are in the first box. Those are the things you see on television. In the second box under STEM, for instance, those are properties that you can see just on an internet server. And the bottom ones are really interactive games. And if you take a look at those 4 little boxes to the left, you see some are video products. We no longer call them television because there's a lot of non-television viewing. And then we've got apps, and we've got whiteboard apps, and so on. Part of what my staff will do is go to a school and teach teachers how to use a whiteboard because they don't know. So the way PBS is thinking is we have video products that are primarily delivered on television, but increasingly delivered on cell phones and Xboxes and other technologies. We have whiteboard apps using familiar characters. We've got mobile apps, and we have interactive games. And as you see, there's one of the popular ones. We'll take a curriculum, and we'll design a curriculum framework, and then the national people take a look at where we take these various, for instance, this is a math framework, how we drive those various contents into the different properties. And in many cases, there's a video linear component that is one way to teach it, but also an interactive component is a wonderful way to teach it. And so we have the different tools. And all of this stuff has huge research budgets, and so if they don't deliver, we yank them from the inventory. We're working and then we're supposed to give you coming attractions. So here's a few quick ones. Transmedia is the fancy word that people in Washington like for products that go across all 4 of those delivery and conceptual platforms. So we've got, this is one I saw a demo on. It'll take a smartphone, or it'll take a iPad with a video, and you can actually move your hands. It knows you're moving your hands, and the bat's wings will fly. And so this gesture-based gaming is something that we're working on. We're finding a lot of parents do not know how to use the tools or understand the richness of tools. And so this will be launching very soon. It's a parents app to try to help guide them through the tools that PBS has and that many of our partners have. And then if you really want to see coming attractions, this is the PBS Lab. It's on TV. It's a way for, or rather on the internet, it's for those homes that are internet enabled to be able to, we test drive products, we get kids' reactions and do things of that nature. So I hope I did it in my allotted few minutes.
That's excellent, thank you. And I think you know, it provides a very different perspective as opposed to the tangible piece. And then we've thought about it, and I think you brought an excellent point of content being one of these conventional categories, but this blurring of the lines is clear. And I love the presentation because I think what it does show is that it is incredibly significant and challenging, and also now happening. That we're beginning to see these resources spread across, which brings that challenge back to the home. What do you do at home versus what do you expect to be done at school? So Jody no longer needs an introduction. She's got the official CES Kids at Play hat trick of 3 stage appearances in one day. But we're really excited about the perspective that she brings from Leapfrog because, you know, people would always ask me about, you know, how do I, when my kids were growing up, my eldest is 10 years old, I said, well, there's a lot of Leapfrog stuff in this, right? But that Leapfrog stuff from 10 years ago, I couldn't pay my 5-year-old to use today. Right, because, and again, it shows some of that real migration that's happened over the last decade. So Jody's going to tell us a little about what she's working on now as it relates to the home and school.
Great, thank you very much. For those of you who are new to the room, my name is Dr. Jody Levos, and I head up the team of educational experts at Leapfrog. This topic in particular is near and dear to our heart as we think about how children learn in the classroom and at home. We know kids don't just learn formally in the classroom, they're capable of learning all the time, everywhere they go. And that's front and center of what we think about as we design new products and new experiences for children. How can we take their desire, their inherent desire to learn, and give them opportunities to do that anywhere they go? And one of the reasons that's so important is we know that parents have real concerns about what's happening in the classroom today. So, for example, 1 in 5 parents no longer believe that their schools are going to be providing children with the academic skills that their children need to succeed. And almost a third of parents feel that the situation is only going to get worse. Classrooms are getting bigger, subjects are being cut, and it's not just about what's happening in the classroom that's a concern to parents, it's also what's happening before their kids even get to school. So almost half of all kindergarten children in this country are arriving underprepared. And that's extremely significant because those early learning experiences are so crucial to set them up for later academic success. So that's something that's really top of mind for us. And we know that not just because we look at the trends, we look at the latest research, we know that because we talk to moms. And when we asked over 1,600 moms, what is the top priority for you when you think about children, learning, and toys, their #1 response was education. I want my children's experiences to be educational. And their second most common comment was that they want those experiences to be enjoyable and engaging. So while they want their children learning, both in the classroom and out, they want those experiences to be something that kids want to do. And so at Leapfrog, our mission is to help every child reach his or her potential, and we do that through mirroring fun and engaging experiences with education. So underneath everything we do at Leapfrog, whether it's a toy for infants and toddlers, a book, a DVD, or a platform and all the digital content that goes on the platform, we have this foundation of learning under everything that we do. And it really involves 3 parts. One is an extensive curriculum. We want what we're teaching children to be the best we can possibly teach them. We also want to deliver that in ways that are meaningful. And so that speaks to the powerful pedagogy of what products like what Leapfrog does and what others in this panel are doing is a delivery system. That matters. And then of course testing it, making sure that it works not just for us as adults but for kids. So I'll speak a little bit about each of those things. At Leapfrog, we have our own on-site learning team. We work on every product every step of the way. We're experts in education and child development. And we draw from our own proprietary scope and sequence. It's a bank of over 2,500 skills that have been aligned to the Common Core, but also take the latest in educational research. And so that really sets our learning objectives every time we start a new project. And then the delivery system. So we're hearing parents say that they're concerned that their child's not getting attention in the classroom, not getting that individualized, personalized learning. And so one thing that we build into our apps, for example, in our cartridge games, is something called auto-leveling. When a child is doing well, the questions will level up and become more sophisticated and grow with the child. When they're not doing well, they won't know it, but the questions will auto-level down. It becomes simpler, and that allows children to gain the competence and the confidence that they need to then progress through the curriculum. We also have tutorials so that if children are struggling with a concept, at a touch of a button, they can hear the underlying concepts, and then they can go back into the game. They don't have to wrong answer the way through. They understand why a question needs to be answered the way it needs to be answered. And then finally, we test it. We bring kids on site. We have our own kid lab. We booked over 1,100 kid testing sessions last year alone. And we put our products into homes, and we get parents' feedback and kids' feedback. We need to make sure that everything we do is educational, but of course engaging. And it's something that kids want to play with before they go to school, in the classroom, and outside of the classroom as well. So thank you very much.
Thanks. So I want people in the audience to start thinking of some questions, but I want this to be kind of interactive and a little provocative. We've got a full range of people sitting over here. You're formally connected to the education system through the involvement that they have with PBS, to mapping into the education system, to pretty much outside the education system. And as parents, how many people out there are parents with kids kind of in the school, secondary school age? All of us face this problem every day, right? So what should we do at home and what should we do at school? And with my 3 children, we're trying to figure out, okay, I have to keep on pushing them really, really hard to do their homework because they don't want to. And then I look at their homework and I wonder why they're doing it, right? But then I make them do it because they've been told to do it, and if I don't do that, I'm a bad parent, right? So now we have this real problem, because I've got all these really cool technology tools, which range from the Sifteo cube that I would love for my kids to play with, right? All the way to the Leapfrog, which gives them independent, measured, monitored, all the way to the watching videos on PBS, all available for me at home, okay? This morning, Nolan Bushnell said, we're not teaching kids the right way at school, right? And as this line is blurring, is the technology and the resources we have, are we allowing school to kind of be the tail that wags the dog of our children's learning, right? Because on some level, our kids have a whole bunch of things available to them, which is demonstrated by what you do, but we still map it back to curriculum. Is that changing?
I think it is. I think I spoke briefly about our scope and sequence. It's evolving all the time. So while we do look at the state standards and the Common Core to influence our scope and sequence, we've been developing it over 10 years, and it is evolving. One example is when we find out from research that children, for example, early algebra, it's becoming part of the Common Core. But what I learned in my own dissertation research is that even kindergarten children can make 2 sides of an equation balance. That's not in the curriculum, that's not in the standards and guidelines, but because I know that, because I stay up on the trends and the latest research, we build that into our products. So we're not relying solely on Common Core. We are reflecting on that, but we're continuing to evolve on what we know about how kids learn and what they need to learn.
Well, I think we're going to see a big change, because we used to have about 45 or 50 states with different curriculum,
right?
Teaching things in a different sequence and sometimes different grade levels. Now, almost all the states have a common, you're supposed to learn this in 1st grade and this in 3rd grade, so it's very clear that's going to make it easier for textbook people. The textbook people are saying they're trying to stop selling books and start selling interactive devices. But we have state laws that say you must buy a textbook for a kid. You can't have an electronic iPad for the kid. We have law teachers who were really good in school and think they should teach the same way they were taught. And we have teachers who don't know how to do an app or how to do that on a whiteboard. And it is an intensive retraining of the person who delivers it, as well as the parent, who may or may not understand the interface with the technology or the power of it. We know how to say, oh, yellow, what else in the room is yellow? But we really don't know how to interact those other ways.
And the prioritization of it, by the way, right? So what should I do instead of one thing or the other? If one thing's not working, how else can I make it happen? I think you're exactly right. We have a full gamut of teacher to student and parent in between, right? That really has trying to figure out this whole thing. And so talk a little bit about this with Sifteo and what you're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the truth is that we're all responding to is that school will not teach everything that we feel needs to be taught. And so each of us is working on this at a different angle. Like PBS has been making great content forever. Leapfrog is a pioneer in like new hardware devices to supplement. Sifteo as well is taking a different approach from Leapfrog in the sense that we're not building experiences that map onto curriculum directly, but we're building experiences that are more directly play focused, but that do reinforce the kind of fundamental underlying thinking skills like mathematical reasoning and logic and language, but through straight up game experiences basically. So it's pretty exciting, I think, that companies, even small companies like us, and Leapfrog was once a small company too, but that we can actually build new devices that are directly inspired by these very classic ways of interaction and learning, but that are totally modern at the same time.
Should I let my kids play with the Sifteo cubes before doing their homework or after doing their homework?
Based on what we have right now, it's probably an after the homework activity, but it's not going to...
When do you see that changing?
Well, we have an SDK, and I think that's where it will change. Like whenever we do game jams and other ways to engage outside developer communities in building experiences for the platform, and we already see people building math applications, language applications, foreign language study applications. There's all kinds of things that, as our small studio will focus in a particular direction, which is making sure that the experiences are tactile, tangible, and unique. But the developer community is seeing all kinds of different things to put on the platform.
I think Tom's raised a great point in terms of informing parents of how to interact with their kids and educate their children. And so part of what we focus on is not just designing content for the kids, and the new technology has allowed us to teach new things, which also harkens back to your question. But it's also reaching the parent and helping the parent understand not only why is this really important to learn, but also what they can do with their child offline, even away from the devices that are really going to extend and reinforce those lessons. And I think it's really important to address the whole family.
So Jody, my 3-year-old, when she was 3, was spending a lot of time on your LeapPad device and watching a lot of PBS videos, and I get them ready for kindergarten, I march them off, and the first day they come home bored, right? How do we handle that, right? The interactivity of the devices that they're getting at home and the types of engagement that they can have both with the viewing of high quality content as well as the engagement that you now have created into your multiple platforms, how does that match up with school?
Yeah, I think school is a little bit slow to adopt some of these new technologies, and I think one thing that we could probably do a better job of is educating teachers on how they can use this technology in the classroom. I obviously know finances are one big obstacle, but another is just the know-how. How do we take this great technology and use it in the classroom? How do we build it into our lesson plans?
I know there are teachers that are already doing this. Like I come in contact with a lot of these early adopter teachers, right, that are out looking for devices that they can incorporate into the classroom. We see it with Sifteo cubes, it happens with LeapPad, Leapfrog stuff, it happens with iPads. It's like there are the early adopters that are always on the cutting edge, finding it and bringing it to the classroom. And they'll seed it basically, and then it will start becoming used in the classroom.
And we actually we have a lot of your products actually, and our technology people, when they go to the schools and do the in-services, they're saying, here's a Leapfrog product, and here's a Discovery product, and here's some apps. That people are, some of which are free and some of which are platform restrained. So, but the average teacher spends $700 a year on supplemental materials for the classroom. And so when they see something that they think will work magic for their kids and the school district won't buy it, they'll go buy it because they care, the good ones care about the results.
And, are there any questions in the audience? Yeah, Darren, you got one in the front.
Sure, can I broaden the frame a little?
Please.
So the printing press did 3 things, did a lot of things, but did 3 things that are important: the Renaissance, the Reformation, and the basis for universities and curriculum. Okay? This technology is fundamentally different. It's likely to have disruptive effect on all 3 of those things, the educational system maybe even being the most important. So my question is this: a lot of the conversation about education is about how do we connect to an existing structure, which is based on a very old and ineffective technology. Why is it the question about what is it really going to look like 100 years from now?
That's excellent.
I'm not sure I agree with your premise, because I think part of the redesign of the Common Core is saying, What are things we think people need to know how to do? Balance your checkbook and be social with people and both the social skills and the core understanding of simple science and so on. But after that, the goal of the Common Core is to empower a learner to be able to progress and to be able to do that self-directed learning, become an expert in a certain area or not. So I don't think it's not designing itself to go back to the old curriculum that's driven by books. And the Common Core says if you want to do it all on interactive devices, or we have one high school which has a 1 computer per kid program, those classes are amazing. The kid comes in and they all just start doing their self-directed learning.
Right.
And if you look at the School for One model in New York, where we constantly customize the learning. We say, okay, you're a kinesthetic learner and I want a lot of manipulatives for you, and you're an auditory learner and I need a LeapPad product that defines the word for the kid. All of that is permissible within the Common Core. People aren't envisioning yet the different ways of doing it, and it's the weakness of the people who are successful in the education system now being asked to reform the thing that they were good at. And that's the challenge, is changing the teachers and the administrators and getting parent buy-in and legislative buy-in to it's okay not to have a book.
And I think that but it does raise an interesting point that I want to reference. So I grew up in rural North Carolina, right? If my parents didn't know it, my teacher didn't know it, or it wasn't available in the public library, I wasn't going to know it, right? There was literally no other alternative for me to get information. And so schools, since the kind of industrial era, have been for pushing information, right? And the issue that you bring up about this inconsistency is that information being scarce is no longer true, right? My 5-year-old grabs my device and finds the answer for everything. My 10-year-old can find it way better and way faster than I can. And so it does bring into conflict potentially some of these things. I think your point is correct, that there are significant efforts around the Common Core to make that happen. But I'm wondering now that information is fully distributed and accessible, if home isn't a bigger portion of that, right? And if we can't start doing, I don't know if any of you have other comments or we can go to other questions on that, or maybe you can go. Sorry.
Home should be more.
Yeah.
I have one question related to the difference between education and learning from an international perspective. So you're referring to curriculum, and this is all US curriculum. So I'm half English, quarter Norwegian, quarter Swedish. And in regard to sort of raising the discussion from an education, which tends to be sometimes even regional on a state level, going from the national, going to some sort of higher learning level of what can we do, and how you're thinking about creating products, services that relate to a broader, more international audience to not exclude everyone outside of America.
That's a great question. So, for Leapfrog, we primarily develop content here in the U.S., and that's really what I was referring specifically to this morning when I talked about our scope and sequence. But we also localize for other countries, and that's not just a matter of making sure that we're translating and using other languages, but actually looking at their educational systems. So we actually have educational experts from other parts of the world who are involved in taking our content and making sure that it addresses the way, the sequence, the order of topics that are taught in those countries, and making sure that we're localizing for those countries. So that's how we're addressing that issue. Thanks for asking.
Anyone else want to?
And I'd say some of our partners, like Sesame Workshop, has different products in different markets. You know, the famous Flapple, the AIDS baby. Well, that was really for South Africa, and it was not for the United States. It was a character developed there because of unique cultural and social issues in that country. And so that customization is part of the plan for the most successful product.
And I'd just say that play is a universal language, and so granted, Sifteo is not going after specific curricular content, but the kinds of experiences with physical manipulatives are more universal by nature. You know, we would probably need to do some localization to kind of make the system appropriate for different countries around the world, but the core activities are universal. And we actually hear from Scandinavian people in that part of the world all the time because of just the awareness of progressive education and intangibles and that sort of thing.
I think we have one more question. We're holding the entire audience hostage for David Pogue, so let's get it.
This will be good. Vipul Sahai from Merrill. My question is, as we move more to a digital medium, whether it be online, tablets, phones, whatever the case may be, how do we ensure that kids maintain that level of interaction that they get from school curriculum, whatever the case may be, as opposed to just kind of singular learning where they're just plugged into a device or a computer?
So the risk of passive engagement as opposed to the active engagement of learning today. Any of you guys want to answer? You're the active guy now.
Screen time is a continual concern for parents. Like, as long as we've been testing Sifteo Cubes, we've been hearing about this concern.
Okay.
So our solution is a system that's more physical, that allows multiple learners, multiple players to play together. Right? That's what we do. Yeah.
We created for the school district an online high school. We now have 14,500 enrollments. It's the largest high school in Nevada. But we were terribly worried about the isolation of those kids, so we have student counselors, we have interactive talk sessions. We have tried to create an infrastructure around the isolation learning that will allow them to socially interact and mature in all the areas they need to mature in to be successful future employees and spouses and things like that.
I mentioned the parent resources and making sure that parents are interacting with their kids and reinforcing, extending those lessons. That's one piece. In our tag software, in our books, we have games that can be 1- and 2-player games, so really trying to get siblings involved. And of course, just our overall belief that screen time in any of its forms really should be part of a balanced diet, and highly encouraging parents to get their kids outside, go to play dates, do all these things. Screens can be incredibly important, but they're just one piece of the puzzle.
And it's also important to recognize that the world has changed, right? We live in a society of dual-income households and student-teacher ratios that are significantly higher than we were younger. So in some ways, these are necessary, and in other ways, hopefully, they're really beneficial. So I want to thank the panel for sharing their thoughts on this really interesting topic on the blurring line between school and home, and the audience as well for engaging and participating. And hopefully, we'll be talking about this more and more and more as years go on, and be like, what's that school thing we were talking about a couple of years ago?
If anyone can put the zip in Common Core standards, it's Mandeep.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.